Welcome to a video on rounding. Remember, rules for rounding, you look one place past what you want to round to. If that number is a 0 through 4, that means you round down and the number stays the same. If your number is 5 through 9, that means it's higher and you round up, so the number would jump up 1. So if we look at some examples, round 542 to the nearest 100. So we want to go to 5. 5 is the 100 spot. So I look one place past, which is the 4. 4 rounds down, so it's going to stay a 5, and we go 500. In number 2, we want to round 43 and 568 thousandths to the nearest 10th. Well, 10th is the 5 spot. If I look past it at the 6, 6 rounds up. So my first number is 43 point. Now the 10th, it goes up, so it becomes a 6. And because we're rounding to the nearest 10th, that's the last place. And boom, our number is cut off. So this next portion, we've got two tables. And in each table, they ask for different things. So the top table, go to the nearest million, thousand, hundred, and 10. So remember, million would be, if you look to the... don't think about the decimal. This 5 right here is in the million spot. In the thousands would be this 5. 100 would be this 5. And 10 would be the 8. I wish I would have used some numbers other than 5s there. So for each one, you want to look at that number and then the one past it to determine whether or not you are going to round. So in the bottom one, we've got tenths, hundredths, thousandths. So 10th is one place past. Hundredth is 2 place past, thousandths is 3 place past the decimal to the right. So I'm going to take a few minutes, hit pause, fill this out, and then I'm going to take a picture of my answers. Now my answers, I did this while I was multitasking, so if you find one that you think might be wrong, shoot me an email, and that way I can fix it. So hit pause, try them out, and then check your work. Alright, so here's my numbers. Let me get rid of my markings from before. Just want you to check them out. Some of them might be hard to read. I did cut off a few things up in here. Sorry about that. But check your work, see how close you are, and if you have questions on those, do shoot me an email. I do make mistakes. I don't pretend to be perfect. So let me know if you find any issues there. Otherwise, let's go on to the next page. Rounding money. So money, nearest cent, remember, is 2 decimal places. And we want to go to the nearest dollar. So we want to go both ways. So I'm going to do the first one with you, and then I want you to do the rest of them and come back and check your answers. So nearest cent, 0.63. That 3 will be the second spot, 6 rounds up. So to the nearest cent would be $250.64. Well, to the nearest dollar, well, dollar's in front of the decimal spot. So I look at the 6, and 6 rounds up. So to the nearest dollar, it would be 251. So that's kind of the concept with money. So now we hit pause, do this page and the next page. The next page is also money, and then come back and check your answers. So there are the answers. Red is to the nearest cent. Green is to the nearest dollar. So check those out. Let me know if you have questions on those. You'll notice in number 3 that the dollars and the cents rounded the same way. Because the 8 rounded up, which kind of did the domino effect, making things change. So check that out. And then the next page, I decided to type these answers. Might be a little bit easier for you to see them. Red, again, is to the nearest cent. Green is to the nearest dollar. Notice this last one, 42.97 cents. So 43 cents. Is closer to 0 than it is to $1, and therefore you just have 0. In number 8, I also want to show this. When you round to the nearest cent, you've got 52.50. But when you round to the nearest dollar, you look at the 4, going back to the original problem, and 4 rounds down, and that's why you have $52. All right. Now we're going to talk about the order of operations for just a little bit in dealing with rounding. So order of operations, P stands for parentheses, grouping symbols. That can be brackets, parentheses, absolute value, all of those things. E stands for exponents, which also includes square roots, third roots, fourth roots, any roots of any kind. MD is multiplying and division. we work that stuff, oh my gosh, I just wrote it down wrong, left to right. So when you look at a problem, it's like you're reading. If you see a multiplication or division problem first, you do that one before you do anything else in that problem. And then we end with adding and subtracting, and again, we do that left to right. So when you get to that step, you just do whichever one you see first. So in this problem, you'll see in parentheses for these problems, that's what I want you to round to. So I want you to kind of work through these. And again, I would try them on your own, come back and watch the explanation so that you can see where you're at. We want to round, this is what we're rounding to. So here in number 1, we are going to subtract in the numerator first. So when I subtract, I get 20.04, then I divide by 1.56, and that leaves me with 12.846. Well, I went around to the nearest tenth. So, tenth, 4 rounds down, so my answer is 12.8. Bad decimal point there. Moving on to number 2. 5.3 million and 23.9 thousand. Well, and we went around to the nearest hundred. Well, I don't know about you guys, but million and thousand are throwing things off. So what I'm going to do first is that I know that millions means 6 and thousand is 3. So I'm going to rewrite this as kind of a makeshift. And I know it's not exactly scientific notation because we have this 23.9, but I can still do application math like this. So I'm going to start by dividing 5.3 and 23.9. And I'm going to get 0.22175773 times 10 to the, subtract my exponents, and I get 3. Now, I'm going to go ahead and now change this back to standard form. In standard form, I'm going to move my decimal 3 spots. So 1, 2, 3. I get 221.7573. My directions say round to the nearest 100. 100 is 2. Looking at the 2 here means it rounds down, so round to the nearest 100 would just be 200. Number 3 asks us to round to the nearest 1. Well, following the order of operations, we've got to do the parentheses first. So inside parentheses, 53 minus 32 will give me 21. So I've got 5 over 9 times 21, excuse me. Now, order of operations, I see division first. So I'm going to take 5 divided by 9 and then multiply by 21. So divide first, then multiply by 21, and I'm going to get 11.666. Well, directions, nearest 1. Here's my 1 spot, 6 rounds up, so my answer is just going to be a nice, cool 12. And you might recognize that formula. It is a conversion, Fahrenheit and Celsius. And the other Fahrenheit Celsius conversion here is number 4. So we're going to go here. Now we're going back to Fahrenheit, looks like in this one. Order of operations. Well, I'm not going to do any adding first. I'm going to do this thing. So I'm going to divide, then multiply. And I end up with 32 plus 38 and 1600ths. Now I can add, and I end up with 70.16. We want to go to the nearest tenth. 6 rounds up. So my answer is 70.2. And I believe, nope, we're still going. I got another page yet, my bad. All right, trillion and million. Again, I would use the makeshift scientific notation. Trillion is 12, million is 6, because this gives me 0.05075 times 10 to the 6th. And if I bring that out into the real world, I get 50,750, and the direction says nearest 1,000. So 1,000 is this 0 spot, 7 rounds up, so it comes out to be a nice, cool 51,000. That makes me think of maybe a GDP problem, which we get to. Here in number 6, order of operations. Now, when you have a fraction, denominator, numerator, you kind of do everything in the numerator first, everything in the denominator first, and then go with it. So if you think about it, we've got to multiply, 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 then we can add them together. So you should end up with 10.6 plus 30 plus 100.38. Now on the bottom, I can go ahead and just add these together, and I end up with 22. So when I add my numerator, I get 140.98, divide that by 22, I get 6.4. Direction says round to the nearest 1, 4 rounds down, so my answer is 6. Number 7. All right, so again, here's stuff to multiply together, here's stuff to multiply together, here is stuff to multiply together. So you multiply those 3 chunks, then add them together. You should get 6,648,844 and a tenth. And this says you want to go to the nearest 1,000. 1,000 is this 8. 8 rounds up, so 6,649,000 should be your final answer on that one. Number 8. You can do this one a couple different ways, but one way to think about it is this is like a 56 over 1. So if you multiply everything in the numerator and then everything in the denominator, you end up with 560 over 48. Then you can do just a simple division problem, and you get 11.66. Well, nearest tenth, 6 rounds up, so I get 11.7. You also could do that original problem just by, 2 divided by 3 in your calculator. Change these 2 to decimals first. That would be fine as well. You should get the same answer if you do it correctly. Number 9. This looks to be a CO2 emissions problem with electricity, which you'll get to here later. Again, we have fractions. You can multiply everything in the numerator by and then divide by the 1,000 here in the denominator. You should get 1.918. Now the directions here say hundredth. That's this 1. 8 rounds up, so you get 1.92. Okay. This one, again, I would do kind of a makeshift scientific notation. I've got my 122.3 thousand. Thousand is 3 times 8.7 million is 6. Billion is 9. So when I do my, in my numerator, when I multiply these 2 together, I get 1,064.01 times 10 to the 9th. And then I still have 24 times 10 to the 9th in the denominator. And if you notice this, look, 10 to the 9ths are going to just cancel out. So I'm really just left with 1,064.01 divided by 24 for an answer of 44.333. And it says round to the nearest tenth. So 3 rounds down, 44.3 is our answer. All right, so this next page, or next section, 1 through 10 here, we're going to round to the nearest hundredth. So I want you to go ahead and try these. Hit pause, go through, try them, and then come back and check your answer. I'm probably not going to go through too much detail because they're pretty straightforward, but I'll talk a little bit. So go ahead and try them and then come back and watch your answers. In number 1, you will work inside parentheses first before you multiply, and your answer to the nearest hundredth should be 208.56. In number 2, you have multiplying and dividing, and so you just go left to right with your answers, and you should have 141,651.87. Bad decimal there. Number 3, again, multiplying and dividing, we just worked left to right, and you should have 101,184 and 17 hundredths. Number 4, a simple division problem, should leave you with 1,192,767 and 84 hundredths. In number 5, you do have parentheses, so you should divide those first, then multiply by 2,000 for an answer of 41 and 65 hundredths. Number 6, multiplying everything straight across, should leave you with 3,937 and 50 hundredths. Because they ask you to round to the nearest hundredth, that's 2 decimal places, you should have both of those because that's what they ask you to round to. Number 7, we want to multiply those 2 together, then add the 25, and that should give you 44 and 9 hundredths. Number 8 is exciting. Inside parentheses, then exponent, last is thing you multiply by that number, and we should end up with 5,841 and 82 cents. Number 9, again, you'll work inside your parentheses before multiplying by 5,400, and you should end up with 67 and 46 hundredths. And number 10, multiply these two together before you add, and you should have 155.35. These problems are all problems you're going to see throughout the Math 123 class because, excuse me, it's a different situations, and it'll be, throughout the semester. Last section of the rounding is percents. So if you have a percent, if it ever says round to the nearest tenth of a percent, you have to have a percent first, then you round. So we're given percents, and now it's just pretty much a straightforward rounding. So go ahead and check that out. Nearest tenth, that's 5 rounds up. So we should have 45.6%. Nearest whole percent, that's the 4, 2 rounds down, so 104%. Nearest hundredth, that's where the 3 is, 5 rounds up, so 5.64%. Number 4 says nearest tenth, that's the 9, 5 rounds up, so it becomes a 0, so we should have 57.0%. Nearest whole percent is the 5, that 5 rounds up, so it's 26%. And the last nearest hundredth, that's an 8, the 0 rounds down, so 49.58%. I hope you enjoyed this video on rounding. If you need more explanation on any one of those, I know some of them I kind of went through pretty quickly, but I didn't want to completely bore you if you were going through quickly on your own. So email me with questions about percents if you have them, and we'll go from there. Thanks for watching.